out with the Supreme Court. We will defy them. Women will be in control of their bodies. And if they think black women are intimidated or afraid, they got another thought coming.
She's the Ohio woman who was charged with a felony crime after she suffered a miscarriage. Last fall, Brittany Watts was 21 weeks pregnant when doctors told her that her pregnancy was not viable. After experiencing frustrating delays at the hospital, she eventually had a miscarriage at home. Now, this is her first TV interview, and she and her attorney sat down with national correspondent Jerika Duncan. We need to warn you here that some of you may find the contents of this report disturbing.
In the United States, miscarriages impact as many as 1 in 4 women who know they're pregnant. Women over 30 are likely to have miscarriages, and if you are a black woman, that rate is even higher. Brittany Watts fell into both categories, but those factors didn't matter when police arrested her following a miscarriage that not only changed her life, she says it motivated her to help others.
Outside of a courthouse in Warren, Ohio, a rally planned in support of Brittany Watts turned into a celebration after a grand jury announced Watts would not be charged with a felony.
I'm truly honored and grateful that you all have come to support me, and we are not done fighting. Thank you so much.
How would you describe Brittany Watts before all of this happened?
No one knew my name. I was quiet most of the time, just minding my own business.
The 34-year-old medical receptionist was in her second trimester of what she thought was a healthy pregnancy. But on September 19th,
I noticed that I was leaking the fluid, and it was uncomfortable. I didn't know if I had used the bathroom on myself or what was going on.
And this is when your water broke, but you didn't know that.
Correct. I went to my OBGYN once I started bleeding, and so I'm thinking something's not right.
And what ultimately did the doctor tell you that meant about the health of your baby?
That there was still a faint heartbeat, but the pregnancy was going to be non-viable.
medical records show Watts was taken by ambulance to Mercy Health St. Joseph Warren Hospital, where doctors confirmed the fetus would not survive.
I waited in the hospital, waiting for the doctor to come in or call, and I kept asking whoever would come in and check my vitals. I said, have you heard anything? Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, well, we're still waiting, we're still waiting. I'm like, okay.
After being monitored for 8 hours in the hospital, she decided to leave against medical advice.
I was frustrated. I felt ignored. Then I returned the next day thinking that there was going to be an induction or something.
On the second day, Watts stayed for nearly 11 hours, waiting to be induced, but that never happened.
So they put an IV in you, but that was the extent of any process to induce the pregnancy?
Correct.
Okay.
Watts's case had been referred to the hospital's ethics committee, in part because medical staff reported concerns that Watts was using the phrase abortion when discussing the next steps of her care. Ohio law bans abortions after 22 weeks, with exceptions for life-saving care. At the time, Watts was 21 weeks and 6 days pregnant. In a statement, Mercy Health told CBS News, quote, while the legislative environment has placed an increased focus on the necessity and importance of ethical reviews, our mission compels us to provide compassionate care to all. But Watts and her attorneys say no one told her the ethics committee was even involved.
And I'm like, okay, nobody knows I'm here. I need to know something. And I was getting frustrated again.
Records show it took more than 6 hours for the committee to decide she could be induced, despite doctors' warning that they needed to act before Watts was, quote, on death's door.
I'm scared. I'm like, there's a non-viable pregnancy in me.
Right.
Am I going to die? Is there something that you're not telling me that I really, really need to know?
So you're worried about your health too at this point?
Exactly. So I left again without being treated.
2 days later, she miscarried.
I go to the bathroom. I sit down on the toilet and I'm doubled over. And then that's when I hear splash. And then I look down, there's blood. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to get cleaned up. All while, did that really just happen?
For the third time, Watts returned to the hospital.
The nurse comes in and she's rubbing my back and talking to me and saying everything's gonna be okay. Little do I know, the nurse that was comforting me and saying that everything was gonna be okay was the one who called the police.
I had a mother who had a delivery at home and came in without the baby, and I need to have someone go find this baby or direct me on what I need to do.
Did she say if the baby was alive or not?
She said she didn't want to look, she didn't want the baby, and she didn't look.
The nurse said that you said you didn't want to look and that you did not want the baby. Do you remember saying that?
I said I did not want to look. I had never said I didn't want my baby. I would have never said something like that. It just makes me angry that somebody would put those type of words in my mouth to make me seem so callous and so hateful.
Watts was later arrested by the Warren Police Department and charged with abuse of a corpse, a felony carrying up to a $2,500 fine and up to 1 year in prison.
The Ohio law that they used to charge Brittany Watts says Ohio law defines abuse of a corpse as the treating of a human corpse in a way that would outrage reasonable family or community sensibilities. Now, let me say this first. As an attorney, I would define this law as unconstitutionally vague, which means that it's not clear enough for you to tell me that I could understand the conduct that I did that would violate this law, which means I don't know what the hell this law is saying that I would have to do to be in violation of it. And if a law is considered to be unconstitutionally vague, it should be overturned. But with the Supreme Court that we have right now, that was specifically placed in by Trump to make sure these types of laws passed, I wouldn't bank on that. Moving on.
So why do you think they were quick to charge you?
Because of my skin color, honestly.
She was painted in this picture of a young, unmarried black woman that did not comply with their orders to keep waiting, and they weaponized the police.
Before they passed what they are calling these anti-abortion laws, but you might as well call them anti-black women laws, the studies have shown that black women would be more likely to be arrested and convicted for these laws for several reasons. For one, statistically, white women financially have been found to be more likely to afford to just fly somewhere where abortion is not illegal and get the abortion done with no problem.
More black women live in states that will ban abortion, and those living in southern states with the most restrictive laws will bear the brunt. For example, black people make up about 38% of Mississippi's population, according to recent census data, compared to about 13% of the overall U.S. population. Black women in the U.S. are already 4 times more likely to have abortions than white women, while Latina women are twice as likely, according to 2019 data from the CDC. Health experts trace the causality to disparities in healthcare access, including lack of health insurance and contraceptives in impoverished communities. A full abortion ban could further increase black maternal deaths by 33%, an alarming statistic for a group that already sees maternal mortality at a rate 3 times that of white women, data shared by the White House show. A growing body of research shows that both racial and gender bias among healthcare providers contributes to devastating outcomes for black women. More American women overall die of childbirth every year than in any other developed nation, according to the White House. Further, women who are forced to have an unwanted baby are more likely to be in poverty and experience financial distress for years afterwards, with higher rates of evictions and bankruptcies, research including a 2020 paper published by the National Bureau of Economic Research shows. Longtime Democratic Congresswoman from California, Maxine Waters, delivered a strong message Friday near the steps of the Supreme Court building.
Why talk about this now publicly?
Because I don't want any other woman to go through what I had to go through.
How would you describe the Brittany Watts today?
Motivated, because now that the charges have been dropped, I'm ready to get to work, making sure that the laws are changed and people are educated on what to do for something that happens all the time. And, you know, as the old saying goes, history repeats itself. I don't want it to happen in this case.
In a statement after the grand jury's decision, the Trumbull County prosecutor said after a careful evaluation of both sides, positions, interviewing witnesses, and researching and applying the law, this office believes Brittany Watts did not violate the Ohio criminal statute of abuse of a corpse.
It's very interesting how the prosecution office wants to say after they carefully evaluated both sides of the position, interviewing witnesses and researching and applying the law, they didn't believe that Brittany Watts violated the statute of abuse of a corpse. Let me tell you something about the law. They were not required to present the case in front of the grand jury to try to get her indicted for a felony, which just means that the case would have went forward to trial for possible conviction if they applied all of that in the beginning. No, this is a CY cover your behind, because now that it's done and the case is not moving forward to prosecution, now you want to say, oh, we don't think she did anything wrong. No, because if you really thought that, you could have not even presented it to the grand jury for the indictment. That is the prosecution's decision whether they want to even present something for those group of people to decide whether or not they think a crime occurred. That's not out of their hands. So that's bullcrap. That's horse manure. What happened is your political people who vote you all into these positions want to see this type of stuff pushed forward. And so you allowed it, and you went in there and advocated and argued like hell that she be indicted. And then when the people did not come back and vote that way, now you put out this CYB statement. You can keep that.
CBS News reached out to Warren Police, but they did not return our request for comment.
It just seems like she was let down repeatedly, though, Tarika, by the hospital.
From going to the hospital, obviously hoping to get a certain level of care.
Yes.
But even I think what was really shocking in all of this, too, is hearing that she said, you know, the police went back to her home.
Yes.
They're looking for the baby. They find this baby, this fetus, in the toilet, and they remove the toilet and take it to the coroner's office as part of the evidence. So just the levels that they went to try to prosecute this woman.
Also, that she was always told that the baby was not going to survive.
It's not viable.
Did not survive.
Right, because of the water breaking.
Correct.
Yes.
I mean, maybe I'm naive. I think everyone's trying to do their best. Police don't. They're trying to. They're trying to enforce a law that they did not pass, right? So I think the issue really is the legal confusion.
It's not their law. It's the state's law.
It's not like they were advocating to go, you know, charge this criminal. There's a law. They've been called.
Of course, this white man took the precious time out of everybody's day, including mine and yours, after everything he heard, to say, don't blame the police. I wonder if I'm surprised that his privileged eyes could not see past that moment. Unfortunately not. The police, let's be very clear, the police have what it's called police discretion, which gives them the discretion, which means the ability to make the decision to decide if they do or do not want to arrest post-investigation after determining whether they believe a crime has actually occurred. But because Karen called the police and made this statement, like often do on Black people for living while Black, there was no real investigation on or before arrest. They criminalized what was a tragic personal loss into a governmental avenue for conviction, i.e. oppression. Let's not make this complicated. White man shoots young Black boy Raph through the door and no arrest. Takes a week to get arrested. But then we have this woman who has a natural miscarriage called in by Karen, and she arrested as soon as they get to her house.
Forensic pathologist Dr. George Sturbins testified an autopsy found no injury to the fetus and that the unborn baby had died before passing through the birth canal. He says Watts' medical records showed she visited the hospital twice before the delivery.
This fetus was going to be non-viable. Okay. And it was going to be non-viable because she had premature ruptured membranes. Her water had broken early, and the fetus was too young to be delivered.
Both the assistant prosecutor and Watts' attorney argued why this case should or should not move forward.
The issue isn't how the child died, when the child died. It's the fact that the baby was put into a toilet large enough to clog up the toilet, left in that toilet.
This 33-year-old girl with no criminal record is demonized for something that goes on every day.
Judge Terry Ivanchek found probable cause to bind the case over.
50+% of white women in 2016 voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump won the presidency, and during his presidency, he was able to fill 3 Supreme Court justice seats. And those 3 Supreme Court justices that he put on the bench were pro-life. As a result, they overturned Roe v. Wade. Even today, Donald Trump brags about how he got Roe v. Wade overturned. And so they sent abortion back to the states. And several states in this nation have implemented strict abortion laws.
I never agreed with the abortion laws in the first place. But when did the law go from prosecuting women who went into a clinic to get an abortion to convicting black women for traumatizing miscarriages? This is not a mistake. It has been a part of the plan the entire time. And of course, this conviction would have been for a felony conviction, which she would now, if she was convicted of this, not have been able to vote these racist lawmakers out of the power positions that they're in when they're making these laws. Then her nursing career would have been gone, making it very difficult to get certain jobs, go into certain careers, which leaves a tax bracket of poverty and subjected to impoverished oppression and racism. For everyone who wants to make the argument that, well, they're committing more crimes, black people make up 53%. Hear that? Over half, 53% of the 3,200 exonerations listed in the National Registry of Exonerations for people who were wrongly convicted for crimes. When they pass these legislations and laws, it is not a coincidence. These racist white people in these positions of power have long used the criminal justice system as a weapon against black people, creating laws that have a ridiculously higher and disproportionate effect on black people over white. And let's just be honest and real about the timing of what's happening right now. The timing of what's happening right now is black women are statistically rising and the most educated and the most to create businesses. We're climbing the ladder of wealth right now. We're getting into positions that statistically in the past, white males or women have held. This is a law. These are laws to directly come against the progress that black women are making in America. This is the goal. This is the plan. This is the definition of systematic racism. How many women who don't have the news coverage that Brittany Watts did will get convicted for these personally invasive racist laws disguised as abortion laws, but will eventually cover everything under the sun that could have caused a miscarriage? Both these people who hold these seats, who get to pass these racist laws out of office. Stay woke.